Hello, finance students. This is Dr. Robinson. I am going to now solve this WACC question that is displayed there in the Excel sheet. So you have an example of when completed start to finish. So in doing a WACC question, you need to break it down into the constituent parts. WACCs are composed of several securities that represent all of the different sources from which financing is drawn. So the first is a bond. That's what's contained in that first sentence there. So it says XYZ Co. has bonds outstanding with 7.5 years to maturity, paying annual coupons of 3.47% in 2 equal payments. These bonds have a $1,000 face and trade for $956. So first we need to know the before tax rate, the before tax rate on these bonds, the required rate of return, which for bonds is the yield to maturity. So this is going to be a financial calculator question. So I'm going to pull that over to the side here. So we have 7.5 years to maturity, and we're paying semi-annual coupons. So that means in terms of number of payments, we're getting 15. The payments themselves would be $34.70, 0.0347 times 1,000, but they are received in 2 equal payments. So 0.0347 times 1,000 divided by 2. So $17.35 is the payment. We face value is $1,000 face, trade for $956. That's telling us the present value, so we can calculate the yield. So these bonds have a yield to maturity of basically 2%, but because we're receiving semi-annual payments, that's a 6-month rate compounded every 6 months. So we need to convert that to an annual rate. So I'm going to put that down here, go from a 6-month rate to a 12-month rate, and calculate. So 4.2%. Okay, so this is our, so we've got our bond before tax of this. So now we need our bond after tax. After tax rate of return on bonds is equal to the before tax rate of return on bonds times 1 minus the tax rate of 0.35, 35%. This is because interest payments to bonds are tax deductible. Next we have bank debt, which pays $0.56 million on an outstanding balance of $108 million. That's monthly payments. So if we take 0.56 divide by 108, that's a 0.5% payment every month. So we need to convert that from a monthly payment, compounded monthly, to an annual payment compounded annually. So I go back, place this here. These are monthly payments. So the old frame is 1 month compounded every month, and we want 12 months compounded every 12 months. So actually paying 6.5% on our bank debt before tax. And after tax, it's going to be the same as the bonds, since bank interest is also tax deductible. Next up is preferred stock. We are receiving $1.90 every quarter. So if I take that $1.90 and divide by 108, that is our return per quarter. But we don't want a quarterly rate compounded quarterly. We want an annual rate compounded annually. So I will do that conversion in the financial calculator. We go from quarterly to annual. Get our required rate of return on preferred stock for tax. Okay, preferred stock after tax is equal to the before tax return because dividends paid to preferred shareholders are not tax deductible. Next we have the common shares XYZ Co. pays a dividend quarterly of 47 cents. So in general, the return to shares is equal to the forward dividend divided by the price plus the growth rate if we are in on a steady growth phase. So the forward dividend here is 47 cents, and we're trading for $45. So I've got 47 cents divided by $45. So that's a required rate of return on capital, or the capital gains rate, or sorry, the dividend yield, but that's a quarterly rate. So we need to convert that to be annual to mesh with the growth rate, or alternatively, we can leave that as quarterly. We've got a growth rate of 5% per year, so let's convert that from an annual rate, as it is in the problem, to a quarterly rate. You get that. So this is our dividend yield, and this is our growth rate. If we add these, we get the total quarterly return on the stock. So we need to convert that from a quarterly rate to an annual rate. So why did I took the growth rate from annual to quarterly and back to annual. Why? Because we need the units to match before we do any addition. And since we needed to add the dividend yield to the growth rate, we need to get them in the same units. So there's our required return on the stock. This is common stock before tax. And so common stock after tax is equal to before tax, because dividend payments to shareholders are not tax deductible. So now we need to do the weights. Weights are a percentage, evaluated percentage of the different financing sources. So we'll have weight in dollars, weight in percent, and then the after-tax return, and we will be multiplying these together and summing the total for all combinations. So my weight in dollars in order, so bonds are $923,000. Bank debt is $1,183,000. Preferred stock is $325,000, and new common equity is $1,796,000. We want to sum these. That's the total financing raised, and now we can calculate the percentage as the weight in dollars of bonds divided by the total for each of the four categories. So we have bonds, bank, preferred, stock, common again, common. The after-tax returns are here, 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 and here. So now we're ready to calculate our WACC, which is the weighted average of these after-tax returns. 21% times the return, plus 27% times the return, plus 7% times the return, plus 42% times the return. That means on average, the average cost to raise financing is 6.3%. And that means if you were to raise, say, $1 million, or in this case, $4.2 million, you would pay 6% of that every year as a financing cost to various sources. And in particular, those sources would be bondholders, bank debt holders, preferred stockholders, common stockholders, and negatively to Uncle Sam, as financing paid to the bonds gives us a tax write-off against income. That was a WACC question completed start to finish, including all possible interest rate conversions.